Hi, I'm Jocelyn and this is Leftover Makeover. I've spent a lot of time in places where people maybe don't have enough to eat, and so wastefulness has become repugnant to me. But let's be honest, nobody wants to eat the same dish over and over again. So I try to make, the same food into something different. And today I'm making what's left of a very large roast into beef stew for dinner. So you can see this roast has been in my refrigerator. The fat is all solidified on top and nobody wants to eat that again. So we're gonna make it into a nice little stew, and we're gonna start that by chopping up some vegetables, and I'm gonna put them in a pan and saute those just a little bit since our meat's already cooked. Normally with beef stew, you start by browning your meat, but my meat's already cooked, so it needs to go in later. So we'll just start with the veggies. That said, I will do the vegetables, and I'm gonna do traditional vegetables because I happen to have them. Actually, these potatoes are past their prime, but you know what? We can still eat them and not die, so I'm gonna do that. But you know what? You can use whatever vegetables are in your house. Stew can be just about anything. So if you've got it and you need to use it, do it. Okay, so I've just got a rough chop on these, and I'm gonna put some oil in the bottom of the pan and just saute these until, they're a little bit golden, and then I'll throw the garlic in. Garlic seems to cook faster, so I always throw that in later. And then I will put a little bit of red wine in there too. So while my onion is starting to cook in the wine, I'm just gonna smash my garlic and give it a rough chop too, and then I'll throw that in there as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a stir. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt. Salt will make those onions kind of sweat faster. Also, you're just gonna need some salt on this dish. So next I'm gonna chop up my potatoes and have those ready too. And we'll put those in a little bit later because they don't take quite so long to cook. The carrots I'm just gonna leave. I have baby carrots, so I'm just gonna leave them whole. I'm not gonna mess with that. They'll be fine, and if they're cooked well enough, then they'll be mushy enough that you can eat it pretty easily, even if they're big. Okay, so I'm gonna set that aside, and I'm gonna get to work on this beef. I am gonna use the juice from the beef. There's onions in there that were cooked with the beef, and they got really mashed down, but you know what? I'll probably end up throwing that in there too, just for some flavor. So, and that gelatinous goo is going to be wonderful. This is awesome. This big layer of fat has kind of separated from the actual meat, so I can take that off. You can freeze that. You can cook it down with a bunch of water and make yourself some more. Oh my gosh, this is hard. It's so cold. You can make kind of some more au jus from that. So, however you want to do it. If you're like trying to do the low fat thing, just take it off and don't worry about it. But in the meantime, we are going to cut this into bite-sized pieces. Kind of try to get them pretty even so that they cook pretty well together. So I am cutting off these extra pieces of fat and stuff, and I'm just putting them in my dump pile over here because I'm not going to use them. But like I said, you can certainly save fat and use it for different things. I'm just not really feeling that right now. So we are going to do this. I'm trying to get these in pretty even pieces. Not quite an inch square, something like that. But because it's already been cooked, we're really just going to warm this up. We're going to let it cook in juice for a little while just to get it a little softer, but we don't want to overcook it either. So lots of liquid is helpful. So I'm going to add my carrots because my onions and garlic have cooked down. They're nice and aromatic right now. So I'm just going to stir those in, and I'm going to put this lid on, and I'm going to let this cook for a little bit. I'm going to add some broth. And guess what? I'm out of beef broth, so I'm gonna use chicken broth, and I don't really care. I think it'll be just fine. That's kind of the thing with leftovers, is you're just working with what you've already got. So I'm gonna make do with some chicken broth, I'm gonna take all that jus and a little bit of the fat from our leftover dish. I'm gonna add that to it. Okay, so I'm adding the goo from the leftovers, and part of that goo are not old, but onions that were like cooked in there. And those onions are like mush right now, but oh my gosh, that's gonna add a lot of flavor. So I'm just gonna stir all of that in together. I'm gonna let that cook for a little while. Okay, so my carrots are starting to get a little bit soft, and so I'm gonna go ahead, and I've made my chicken broth. I used bouillon, and I made it in that same, holy shnikes! Or a broth in, oh good. So obviously I got the bouillon in there, or the broth, and I'm not worried about the fact that it's chicken, slightly worried about the fact that it's all over my kitchen. But that's reality, right? That's what happens with cooking. So here we are. Welcome to my kitchen. All right, I'm gonna throw in my potatoes, and I'm going to taste this broth and see how it is. And if I don't love it, a couple of things that I like to put in, or a few things I like to put in, other than just salt. I love herb de Provence. This is the last little bit that I have from the last time we went to France. I use this in a lot of different things. Just, I love the flavor. Tomato paste is always good. And y'all, I hate tomato paste in a can because you always end up wasting a whole bunch of it because you only need a tablespoon or so. So if you can find it in a tube like this, it's really great. You just use whatever you need and put it in the fridge, and then you don't have to worry about wasting it. And then balsamic glaze. I know most people use vinegar, like regular old vinegar, but to me this just adds a lot of richness to your stew. So those are the three things that I may add, and this is kind of like trial by error, right? It's not like a normal recipe where I can say use a teaspoon of this and a teaspoon of that, because I'm making it with a bunch of just stuff that's around the house, and half of it's already been cooked. So we're gonna play it by ear. Yeah, I definitely want the herb de Provence in there, but I don't know that I'm gonna add anything else. We'll see how that goes. This is the way I really cook at home most, is just by taste testing. I like to taste it as I go, and if I like it, then we keep it. If I don't like it, then I add something else to it. Trial and error is the way I was taught to cook. My dad, my yaya, everybody in my family, this is what we do. We just we add things as we go. And we never really follow a real recipe except when baking. So this is what we've got so far. So now I'm gonna add my beef, and whatever little bits I can that came out of that, like the extra juice and stuff that's on there, I'm gonna add as much of that as possible. And I am really filling this pot up. Maybe I should have used a bigger pot. That's it. I'm just gonna let this cook on like medium heat. Because I added that broth in the bowl pretty cold. It wasn't really hot. So I'm gonna keep it at about medium. If you added hot broth, you might want it like more medium low. And we're just gonna cook this until that meat is tender again. So this is again a trial and error thing. I will come back and take tastes, and then I will also kind of pick at that meat and decide when it's ready. I'm also leaving the lid on so I can keep all that juice in there. And condensation is a good thing in this. Okay, so this meat is starting to get really nice and tender, and it's really soupy, and I don't love it soupy. If you like your stew soupy, just leave it this way. Personally, I like to thicken that up. So I'm gonna take a little bit of the jus and put it in this extra little container here, and then I'm gonna add tapioca flour to this. I do tapioca flour just because I like it. I like the flavor better than cornstarch, but by all means use cornstarch or rice flour or whatever you got. And I just take a little whisk and thicken this up, and then I pour it back in there. All right, so I've made this thick, gluey mess. Actually, I'm gonna add a little more juice to that. And then I'm just gonna pour this back in, and that'll help thicken up that stew nicely. I'm just gonna stir. I'm gonna make more of a mess because I haven't made enough of a mess this evening. There we go, that looks better. I find that it's easier to mix the tapioca or cornstarch in small batches and then add it in rather than doing it in the pot itself. Okay, so we're all ready to go, and we're just gonna dish this up. Let some more veggies in that. There you go. Beautiful, easy beef stew made with leftovers and whatever else you've got on hand. Okay, so dinner's served. I hope you enjoyed this. Bye.